Went and served in the French army.
Ah. Oh, of course, that's the big. There's a Castelnaudary is one of the biggest bases, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Constitutional question. Prime Minister May has already rejected our First Minister's request for a referendum. Assuming we get a bit more SNP representation in the Scottish Parliament next time, she will ask again. What do we do when the Prime Minister says no? Now is not the time. Again.
Well, you either do what Catalonia did and have one anyway, which would be difficult for them to stop, though they might try. The alternative is simply to declare independence.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, in the end, what are they going to do?
Tanks, soldiers, guns. That's why
We're told that international wouldn't be acceptable. People wouldn't, that Scotland wouldn't be accepted as a member of.
No, it might not.
International body.
No, but it might be after a few years, like Kosovo or Macedonia or whatever it's called now, North Macedonia.
I would only say one thing, declare independence, trust me, they'll be falling over, you get the oil. The oil that we supposedly don't have much left of.
Can I ask a question about Falklands oil? Was there ever a discussion about the economic value of the Falklands as opposed to its sovereignty?
No, only afterwards. Yeah, well, nobody had a clue where the Falklands. Well, I mean, nobody knew anything about the Falklands or anything. The negotiations. There were some brief negotiations with Argentina in the late 1970s, on which the Ministry of Defence was represented by somebody who'd come out of university for a year and was a junior trainee. That was the level at which it was regarded. Nobody was interested in the Falklands. I mean, they were desperate to get rid of them. Desperate.
But there is oil there.
Yeah, but I think they know that they won't be able to exploit it without Argentine consent. Far too difficult. They've got no base that they can operate from. And I don't think the oil companies would go in an area which is so heavily disputed when they've got lots of other places they can get oil from.
Question from the back there.
Hi, I'm Ellen Hooper from EU Citizens for an Independent Scotland, and for me the story about having to leave France to secure your own future kind of rings really true for Scotland and for me in my situation right now. I'm quite interested in hearing how you feel about Europe and what we as potential returners from Scotland can do within Europe to even the way for an independent Scotland.
Oh gosh. Well, I think all of us who are, British nationals in Europe and European nationals in anywhere in Britain have been the completely left behind, uninterested. I wouldn't believe for a moment the British government's saying, oh no, everybody will be all right. Well, yeah, okay, they're not going to throw 3 million people out physically because it can't be done. But what rights you'd have left, I don't know. And the big one is whether when you leave you're allowed back in again. The same actually for us. I mean, our worry, particularly with my health, was that we'd finish up with no health care. And we can't afford private health care, not at my age and with pre-existing conditions. You're talking 11,000 or 12,000 pounds a year. So we just couldn't take the risk of staying. And there are other people like that. Again, the French or the rest of the EU are not going to throw people out. The European Parliament is much more concerned with individual people's rights in Europe than the British government is. How far they can go, I think most of the rights of British people in Europe is going to depend on what the British do to the Europeans here. I mean, they're bound. The problem is that it doesn't become, apart from the visa for Schengen, it doesn't become an EU matter anymore. It becomes an individual state matter once Britain leaves. And obviously, if the British are horrible to French citizens or German citizens without giving them freedom of movement rights and so on, the Germans and the French will have no alternative but to do the same. And I'm not sure you could really say that's unreasonable.
It is unreasonable. None of us should be bargaining.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. No, I mean, we're all having our rights taken away. The thing that got us is that we moved to first Greece and then France on one set of assumptions, that we were members of Europe and we had the freedom of movement to go and live wherever we wanted to in the EU, and that's been taken away.
Back to my question, there's a great contingent of EU citizens that are currently on their way to leaving Scotland, and they will be returning to Europe, and I'm sure that they will continue to hold Scotland dear to their hearts.
Yeah.
What can they do when they return?
Spread the word, let us into the EU.
Yeah. Hope that Scotland joins the EU, and hope somehow that the British are not too draconian, but I think they will be. I'm sorry, I'd love to be optimistic,
No, I'm in the same.
but with May in charge, I really can't see it. I think take whatever you can to defend yourself at the moment. I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, you're in the opposite side of the coin to us, who come back from the EU, because we're worried whether we could even live there in future.
Can I just interject on this particular point? Because I think we've got both sides of the coin here. You've had to leave France because of what you've seen coming. You're feeling you're having to leave Scotland because of what you're seeing coming. I don't want to make a big song and dance about my own situation. I'm married to an EU citizen, German lady. She would be here tonight, but unfortunately she's sick. And we've realised that for the two of us, there may well be no one single place where the two of us can live together in peace.
No, your best bet might be Germany, actually.
Yes.
It's a better bet than staying in Britain, honestly, I would say.
Although I've got great hopes for Scotland,
Yeah.
although I share your doubts about the likely reaction of the Conservatives as to whether we get a Section 30 in the first place, or their reaction to any sort of unilateral referendum or declaration.
Yeah, no, I agree.
No, sorry, that was just an interjection.
No, I mean, we're sitting here, and I mean, 4 years ago, who would have thought that this would actually happen?
Yes.
Can I also make a contribution to that one? My mother's French, and she's actually lived in Scotland for the last 70 years and is still alive and living in Arran now. But my sister's lived and worked in Germany for the last 35 years. She lives near Neuss, opposite Düsseldorf, in Nordrhein-Westfalen. She took German citizenship earlier this year, but she was in a fortunate position to be able to do them. So my own avenue is to exercise my French nationality through filiation, and I'm in the process of doing that. But the observation I want to make is the massive change in perception between 2014 and now. I go to France quite a lot and see my many French relatives who I don't consider to be foreigners, unlike Margaret. And the question, and my sister had this same sort of attitude in Germany, where they refer, just as in France, to England when they mean the United Kingdom. Their attitude in 2014 was, why would you want to leave England? They just didn't get it at all. The way in which the right-wing press and the Conservative government have vilified Europe and the European nations have not gone unnoticed in all the countries of Europe. My French, extended French family absolutely get it now. And they are saying, why do you guys just go for it?
Yeah, I'm sure.
The goodwill all over Europe now towards us is now there in a way it wasn't, because there was no real comprehension. The UK was generally regarded as a freedom-loving, welcoming place and tolerant and all the rest of it. But now the xenophobia has been unmasked and directed towards them. They absolutely get where Scotland's coming from. And I have absolutely no doubt that the European politicians, once they get the green light with a yes vote, the doors will open.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so.
And what you can do if you have to go back to Germany is join the Germans for Scottish independence, of which there
Already a member.
Can you just Can I just take two more questions and then we'll have a break? And I think Clive will still be here, so if you do want to sort of engage him in conversation, I'm sure he'll still be happy to answer. But I'll take two more questions.
Thank you. Clive, I'd like to touch on what you were talking about, emergency powers. You said that you probably know what they are because you wrote them. Would that be reflected in the fact that the UK government and Scotland Department has been massively recruiting members of Scotland?
Well, I think that is all part of the centralised control that they want, and that will happen regardless. I think it's like the money that the EU sent for Scottish agriculture has been nicely siphoned off into Britain, and that sort of thing will go on and on, because quite frankly, they don't really care. I mean, I think politicians are totally cynical. The Tories know that they will never get a majority in Scotland. You know, there's no point. They won't ever get control of the Scottish Parliament, so they have to do it a different way. Emergency powers are very different. What happens there is that they go to Parliament and say, we need emergency powers, and you pass an Emergency Powers Act, which gives the government, in effect, the right to rule by decree, like during the Second World War, with the Defence of the Realm Act. When I was writing the ones for nuclear war, it went in 3 stages, which got more and more draconian as you went on. But one of the very first ones was to take control of all the motorways, ports, airports, and so on. And I could imagine them doing that in March.
Last question.
Okay. Yep. All right. Thank you. One of the things that I think is gives Scotland a very powerful hand, and I think it's worth pointing it out as we go along this process, is that let us say that Scotland votes for independence, and then after maybe a lot of hassle we achieve in an independent state. If England decides then, well, we want a better relationship with Europe, it has to go to the member states, as I understand, for approval, and we'll be sitting there with a vote, and it could block all sorts of things that England might want to be an independent Scottish government.
Yeah. Yep. They don't know what they're doing.
Could I just ask one little question? It's something that's troubled me over many years. I actually had a friend who had a girlfriend from the Argentine. She lived here for some time, and my friend had lived and worked in the various South American states because he was an expert in animal medicines. I always remember that it must have been 2 or 3 months before the Argentine War began that his girlfriend was writing to him saying that all the talk in the streets and so on is that the Argentines were going to invade the Malvinas, as they called them. And I do wonder how much of that just suited the government of the day, to have a good war.
I would say that was certainly the case in Argentina with the junta, which were in pretty bad way, and it was for the British, it was just sheer incompetence. I mean, they made the most of it once it started.